You're listening
to the CD Baby
CD Baby
DIY
Musician
Podcast.
Hey there, and welcome to episode number 72 of the CD Baby DIY Musician Podcast. My name is Kevin, and joining me for this Roundtable edition is Chris, and we have a name change here this time around.
A confession? Is this a confession?
I'm coming out in front of you all, in front of the podcasting audience, to say that my name is not actually Robert. I may have mentioned it before.
You have.
We're actually going to go ahead and just call me by my last name, Bolton, because my name's Chris, and there's the other Chris, and we figured when we started the podcast that we had to go by, couldn't have two Chris's because that's confusing in radio land.
So we opened it up and said that you were going to pick your all-time fantasy name, like if you could be called Ninja or Santa Claus, and you picked Robert.
It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
I know.
I was very disappointed.
Yeah.
I know. And I just decided, because I've been doing a little bit of blogging for Host Baby, and that it gets a little confusing when I'm doing customer service, and there's oh, you're on the podcast. I'm like, yeah, I'm Robert, but I know I just said I was Chris, but so I'm just gonna go by Bolton, and hopefully there won't be any more confusion. And if you miss this episode, you'll just wonder who's that guy Bolton,
and he sounds just like Robert.
Sounds just like Robert. What happened? Well, there you go.
And Bolton is my last name.
Yes. See, originally you were going to go by Charles, which is your middle name, but right as we were about to hit record for the very first episode of the podcast, he's like, wait, no, go by Robert. I'm like, okay, whatever.
It just never stuck. I don't know if I could go by a pseudonym, I never felt quite...
But see, the beauty of it is how many times our listeners didn't know I was actually talking to you when I said Chris.
Yeah, right. Didn't matter.
Well, okay, we got all that straightened out. We'll have to put on name tags or something. But it's been a while since we got together. Some eventful things have happened. I went on vacation. That was fun. Got to see you two.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a good show.
I got to see your Twitter pics of the U2 concert.
That's right. It was a great show. I have to say, I'm starting to wonder if U2 listens to the podcast. They're doing a big live streaming event this weekend. By the time you listen to this podcast, it'll have happened already. But yeah, YouTube doing a big live streaming of their Rose Bowl show this Sunday.
Nice.
Which will have been Sundays past by the time you hear this. But I think it's kind of interesting. I noticed, going to the show, that they seem to be embracing a lot of ideas that have been embraced in the indie world for a long time, but have been resisted by the mainstream music culture. Things like, before they used to shake you down before you entered the building to make sure you didn't have any photo equipment, video equipment, or recording devices. Now they kind of encourage it.
Yeah.
And there's all these people generating great content, and then now they're going to live stream a show. So I think they're doing some cool stuff. Another eventful thing that happened is Chris here finally came to see my band play. Hello, morning. It was only because we made him run sound.
Not only I had to work for you guys.
And he brought a book.
Wait, but let me make one thing clear. No self-respecting sound man would actually listen to the music once the show starts. So I had to bring a book.
He walked in and he told them, you brought a book. You haven't even seen us play before.
Wait. Another reason, I just have to make excuses now. But the other reason is because I knew you were going to play the same set twice.
True.
And you know what? I didn't read a single word of the book.
I know, we were that good.
You were that enthralling. No, it was a very good show, though. I liked it. And the free beer helped.
Yeah, that did help. Which I don't think we haven't talked since then, but that was a very cool show in a clothing store here in Portland, and it was jam-packed. I was very impressed. And so my new theory is, if you want to fill out the show free beer. That's the way to do it, because that's what they had. And man, there was a line around the block to get in. They had food trucks outside getting food to the people waiting in line, and it was wall to wall inside. So it was a good show.
Yeah, sounded good.
Yeah,
thanks to me.
Yeah, thanks to you.
Very nice. I don't know where I was that night, but
well, I don't know either.
I have hazy recollections of those sorts of things.
All right, well, we've got some news, and we'll touch briefly on some of the previous episodes. It's been a couple episodes since we had a Roundtable edition, and then we'll get to your calls. We had a lot of calls this time around, so let's get to it.
CD Baby.
CD Baby. Music. News.
Well, Google is getting into the music game through a new music search service that will take you directly to the songs themselves. Through partnerships with Lala and iLike, you will be able to play song clips right from your Google search result. If you don't like the song, search for something new. But if you like the song, you'll be able to purchase it directly through Google's partnered service for as low as 10 cents. The catch with the 10-cent model is that you'll only have streaming capability. To own the song as an MP3, you'll have to pony up 99 cents. And for most artists using CD Baby for digital distribution, your music is already in the Lala catalog. There's several interesting MySpace developments. MySpace just launched a new web analytics service for their artist pages, so artists can now log into their account and see detailed information about who's listening to their music and visiting their MySpace page. Some of the analytics now available are the age groups listening to your music, the gender, their location broken down all the way to city, plus, of course, the number of plays for your songs and blog statistics. MySpace also launched a Hulu-like music video section that you can find at musicvideos.myspace.com. The indie artist community is still wondering if they will be able to take part in the new iTunes LP that includes extended content like photos and video with a download purchase. Rumors have been flying that there is a hefty production fee that iTunes will be charging to integrate the LP format into an album, but as of now, they are denying that rumor. One thing is certain, though, for the time being, it is just open to a select few artists with no detailed plan as to when it will be rolled out to the music community at large. And those are the main headlines I saw.
The MySpace updates. I mean, some of it seems to be sort of congruent with what Facebook is doing with their pages. Offering stats and stuff about users interacting with the content. But Facebook still really doesn't have the sort of musical bent yet that MySpace does.
Yeah.
So I think that, like you were talking about, I think a few episodes back, you think that MySpace kind of has like a little room to make a run for it as far as just cornering the music market.
Yeah.
As far as social networking goes.
Yeah, they're still the easiest place for bands to get content up quickly. And outside of, Google and all those, search engines, MySpace is by far still the number one social network that links to CD Baby. So we have, tons of links coming in every day from people clicking through from MySpace. And definitely people who still use it to find music, and they see a cool band, they go, I'm going to go check it out on MySpace and here's some more stuff. So it's definitely an interesting development, and the stats are really cool, and I'm assuming that this is just the beginning. So thanks, Jerry. That's my MySpace buddy in Australia, so he'll get a kick out of that.
And Tom, thank you, Tom.
Tom's not.
Oh, yeah, Tom.
I heard a rumor today that Tom now has a Facebook page, and they even some blog wrote that, and they even had a screenshot. I'm like, I really don't need to look at a screenshot of Tom's Facebook page.
I'm sure it took some prankster about 5 seconds to create that.
Yeah.
But lots of rumors flying around about the iTunes LP. Somebody was claiming that, they were told it would cost $10,000 production fee. iTunes denied that, but it is going to take, it's not going to be like normal distribution because iTunes has to do a lot of work. And honestly, I still don't truly see the value in it. I know that we tend to send a lot of love Apple's way on this podcast, but I'm always willing to call them out when I think something's not that great. And when I've watched their big presentation talking about, look at all these great photographs of the doors, I'm like, I can do a Google search and get those in 2 seconds,
And you can see the videos on YouTube or
Yeah, and
anywhere else.
it's really
Vimeo.
just felt like a website online. So I know a lot of indie artists are like, how are we going to get in on that? I'm like thinking, you don't need to. Don't worry about it.
Put all that stuff on your website.
I mean, I guess in a way, like to iTunes' credit, it's sort of creating more of a magazine sort of appeal, or like an online magazine where you have different ways of experiencing and reading about the content that you're about to purchase.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be available. I mean, as far as a musician, is it going to make or break you? As far as being a musician, like, no.
Yeah, and I think most of it is geared towards, the value in it is geared towards the classic albums. Like people that, you know, are maybe going back and rebuying the Doors album digitally, they might go, okay, well, I'll get that version because it has all that extra content. But I don't think it's going to be a big motivating factor to discover new music. So we'll see. Right now, it's still pretty closed off from what we can gather. So
when you buy a download of the Doors, does Apple ship you the marijuana?
I believe so.
Okay.
I think that's part of the extended LP version.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I got mine.
And Google, yeah, that was lots of people all excited about Google's search. You know, right now when you type in an artist name or a song in Google, you get links to other websites where you can listen, but now you're going to get some links that are more of like being able to just listen to the song right inside that search result. And they're, you know, going to make, I've seen some screenshots of it. I mean, it's not like amazing looking. It looks like a Google search result, but it gives you a way to listen to the song right there, as opposed to, you know, having to go to a website. And then sometimes, you know, that you type in a song name and the website just mentions the song, doesn't necessarily have the MP3 there to stream. So
Google's never been hugely big on pretty.
No, they haven't. But the CD Baby catalog isn't. If your distribution level through us is set to 50, that level where
Everything that pays is $75.
Oh.
50 is everything I believe that has like a set price.
Oh, okay.
That you'll be paid for your.
So yeah, if you're in that category, your music is most likely already there, and so hopefully when people are searching, your music will pop up.
Yeah, well, and how many people are going to go, oh my gosh, Google's giving away my music for free?
Yeah, I can't wait for that. And I didn't have time to put this in, but I literally just saw before I sat down to do this podcast that there's a university in Australia that is requiring their journalism students to take a class on Twitter. So I thought that was an interesting news development.
Oh, wow, that is.
Because they said there's too much junk out there that they need to know how to use Twitter properly for journalism.
Well, you know, I mean, this may be a little off topic, but I have been reading a little bit about the different newspapers, New York Times and Washington Post, and these places that are now adopting actual Twitter policies for their journalists, because some of them realize that it's a good thing, but that they don't want to be given bad face by the reporters, like going over bound. So they're sort of creating like a code of ethics, just like journalists have their own code of ethics of reporting. They're sort of creating their own little Twitter code of ethics.
Interesting.
And partly why I brought that up was because it plays into one of the phone conversations, our phone calls that we got later on. So well, let's move on to a little discussion about previous episodes. I'll let you
Which
guys
one
start.
should we just pick? Let's talk about episode 2.
Actually, I wanted to bring up the Works Progress Administration interview, and it's funny because a couple people posted, which I knew they would. I didn't like this episode. And I said clearly from the beginning that obviously this was recorded for the Music Discovery podcast, so this was not intended to be a DIY musician podcast from the start. But the reason why I wanted to include it was there was a couple reasons. One was I always find it interesting just to hear any artist that has some sort of established track record, to hear what they have to say. And I thought they did touch on some interesting themes just about how, they're having to do things themselves. And, there's very established artists. And some people on the comments at cdbabypodcast.com, I think interpret that as like, oh, they're so poor, they can't get a deal. And that's not how I took it at all. I took it as that the machine is just non-existent. Mm-hmm. And therefore, even these guys who have a proven track record aren't able to get a deal and get support just because the machine doesn't want anything unless it's going to just, be like Britney Spears or Rihanna or something that's, just straight up pop dollars, nothing, no artist development, no artist integrity is really being considered much by those major labels. So that was, just hearing them talk about that I always find fascinating. Also, because they did one of the things and what they're doing on this tour that I have said artists should be doing and worked wonders for when I was in Small Town Poets, was actually stopping by and playing something acoustically for people. And you think, why would I stop by CD Baby? They just put my music on the web. But every person along the lines that touches your music in some fashion has some sort of small ability to influence. And you coming by and, playing some songs, maybe they heard the album, and this was the case with somebody here at CD Baby. They heard the album and weren't that impressed with it, and those guys came by and they were like, oh my gosh, these guys are amazing. And it really changed their opinion of them. And again, there's not a ton we do at CD Baby that really influences, but we do have contacts with iTunes. We do have people calling us up looking for stuff occasionally.
And they ended up on the podcast.
Yeah, and they came by, specifically to be on the Music Discovery podcast. But it was, just one of those things where I was excited to have them, but it was a pretty big treat for me just because I'm a big fan of Toad the Wet Sprocket. But I also, just hearing them play, I know it sounded good on the podcast, but in the room, the quality of instruments they had and just hearing music just live and raw like that.
Without
really
auto-tune, without, any edits.
Without a sound system or anything. It was really cool. And I was like, but people don't experience music like that hardly ever anymore. Mm-hmm. There's always some sort of sound system. There's always sort of something. And just to hear three very talented people sit in front of you and sing and play in just a totally raw fashion is pretty engaging. So that's the big reason why I wanted people to hear that, because it worked when I was in Small Town Poets, and it worked on me when they were here, because I was like a total fan after that. And
you went to the show that night, and you were thinking you probably weren't going to the show, right, before they played?
Well, and that harks a little bit back to the episode we did back in the beginning of concerts in your home, and why that trend of people touring and just playing in intimate environments is so popular, because there's really something special about being in a relatively normal-sized room with a bunch of people just sitting there listening to, musicians play almost completely acoustic.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that kind of stuff is things that artists in the internet age forget about, because, you spend so much time dealing with online stuff, and that a lot of times you forget about that and taking the time to go do those type of performances. And, that if there was one thing or one of three things I could point to that really helped the success of, Small Town Poets when I was in it, was doing that. We did that probably 3, 4, 5 times a day, literally, plus a bunch of other stuff, plus a show. And we were tired. But what kept you going is you saw this works. People would just be coming out to the show just because of it, and you saw people buying the record because of it, and it just... You're like, wow, this is where, I don't know why, it's just us playing acoustic guitars, but it's working, Mm-hmm. So now all you people that hated that episode, go listen to it again.
And hate it more.
And hate it more. And then I talked to Allison Weiss, who is a very entertaining person on Twitter. Did some cool stuff with Kickstarter and building a dedicated fan base online. I'm definitely encourage people to try some of her Twitter contest ideas. I think those went over well. I wouldn't mind it if my fans gave me $7,000 to finish my album.
You wouldn't turn it down. No.
Yeah. So
no,
the fact that she signed up with this company Kickstarter to help pay for her mixing of her album, and she put her goal for $2,000 and met her goal within 10 hours. Says that she's probably doing something right with engaging people. Definitely a good interview, and lots of good promotional ideas in there, and she even gave us credit for some of them. So we are spawning success.
You're welcome.
We'll expect a percentage of the cut. So
Yes, please.
I'm sure Allison's ideas that, some of the ideas from that interview will pop up more in future Roundtable episodes. I guarantee it's going to be a favorite. So we're going to move on at this point because we got a lot of calls, and we love it when you call the listener line. And man, it's getting tough because there's so many calls. I had to weed some out, and I didn't. It's like I want to use them all, but maybe we'll just have to have a whole listener feedback
call episode.
We could just have them talk to each other, and we could just check out.
There we go. There we go. So let's get into some of your feedback and phone calls.
CD Baby Podcast.
Message line
206-426-5683.
The number you have dialed
206-426-5683.
Hey, this is Juice from JuiceRocks.com. I'm calling to leave a comment. First-time commenter, I guess. I'm coming from the other coast from you guys. I'm out here in New Hampshire, way out on the other side. And I just wanted to tell you that I love the podcast. I've found these about 6 months ago, and I've been listening to them. And there's so much information on there that it's really hard to even to keep up with. There's so much good stuff on there for the individual artist and marketing, and I'm enjoying it thoroughly. A comment on the last episode about the music CD being a calling card and stuff. For that argument, it's not. I wouldn't call it a calling card itself. It's more of a representation of who you are. An example would be if you walk into a bank with blue jeans and a T-shirt, you're just an average person and no one's going to pay attention. You go through the teller or whatever like anyone else. But if you walk in with a three-piece bank, you'll see the people that work there will get up out of their seats. They'll walk over to you and they'll say, "Can I help you, sir? Is there something we can do for you today?" And it just basically means that you're really serious and you believe enough in yourself that you want the attention. And that's what the CD is. And to be honest, most CDs don't sound as good live, and there is an art form to it. And when you get the merge between somebody who can capture an artist and bring it to a level that even surprises the artist, I think that's a beautiful piece of art right there. And but thanks again, guys. You guys are doing a great job, and I really anticipate every podcast you guys got coming out. You got some great guests, and this is really, really cool. Thanks again. Juice at JuiceRocks.com.
Hello. I'm just calling to see if you guys can put together a podcast that will help us vocalists out there who are looking to put together a band. It's been really difficult to find good musicians, and even when you find good musicians, it's hard to find sober, drug-free musicians, even if you find those. It's hard to put together something that has a mix of people who can work together and have a good rapport with each other. Not sure how to advertise outside of my local area, and just looking for well-rounded musicians that can play and follow and become a very tight band. So if you have any advice or, can help us vocalists out there who are looking to do something, please do a podcast for us. Thank you.
Hi guys, at CD Baby Podcast. This is Matthew James White calling from Berlin in Germany, and I'm calling up in relation to the collection of email addresses at concerts. Probably a lot of people out there are already doing this, but I've noticed that sometimes when I share the bill with other singer-songwriters, it's never occurred to them, and that is to get fans to type their email address directly into your own laptop. That saves a lot of time, as opposed to getting fans to write their email addresses down by hand, because of course, sometimes you can't read their writing, or they're too drunk or whatever, and it just saves so much time. So, thanks for the great podcast you're doing, and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for those calls. That last call was from Matthew James White, I think he said his name was, and I know it was a little harder to hear, but he called all the way from Berlin, so I wanted to give him a shout out on the podcast. Thanks for listening in Germany. My roots go back to Germany. So, but he was talking about having a laptop at your show for people just to enter in email information instead of having them write it out and then trying to get home and you can't read their writing, which is an issue. I'm still a little hesitant to leave
your laptop out.
Because even when I know somebody who's working the merch table, it can get boring back there, and their mind wanders. They drift off for 2 minutes and leave the laptop there and come back. The laptop.
Well, most laptops these days have those little security locks on them, so you can buy a little like padlocky thing, so you could lock it to a table.
It's a good idea. So, it'd be interesting to hear if artists are finding success with that. The other thing is why I've been hesitant to do that is one time I was working a trade show booth for CD Baby, and the person who was trying to enter in their information on the laptop was taking literally like 10 times longer than they would if they'd been writing it. And so I just ended up shutting it because it was like everyone has to use that laptop and they can't write it on anything else. And they were just going really slow and kind of being distracted. And I'm like, okay, never mind. But if it's working for you, it's a good way to go. Just make sure you trust your merch person not to leave it there.
Yeah. I had a thought about the second caller who wanted to put a band together, and it sounded like she's just a vocalist and probably doesn't play anything. It may be a bit much to expect to get, 3 to 5 new people in a room that are all responsible and are all going to show up and be interested and contribute and then end up with a good sound. So maybe she should think about instead just finding a guitar player or a piano player first, someone that she can work one-on-one with and maybe does harmonies or something. Mm. And then once they kind of know what their sound is as a two-piece, then they add a bass player, and then once that's solid, then they get a drummer. So it's sort of like each new person has to fit into what she's kind of already created. Mm-hmm. Or add to it, but
and if you really want to play music and you're not, don't feel like you need to have your own group right now. There's a lot of musicians, a lot of groups out there would probably love to have a female vocalist, partake in what they're doing.
No,
and
true.
I think that would be a great way to, meet other musicians is start playing music and then worry about your dream band later,
Mm-hmm.
Well, and what you were saying, Chris, I have seen a lot of solo artists. Usually they have some person that they've kind of latched onto that's kind of a champion for their music as well, and kind of helping them along develop, and then they kind of help them put together a full band. So I've seen that happen a lot. So that might be your best bet. It is tough to, just even from a regular band perspective, it's tough to get, 5 people in the same room and have good chemistry and be able to work together and kind of get unified on some goals.
I've always picked personality over ability in the groups that I've played in. I don't know if that's the same for you guys, but it's not so important to me. If someone says they can play an instrument, I trust them. If they're a nice person to hang out with, they can be in my band.
Well, that's the whole reason why they kept me in Small Town Poets, because they had been on the road with this interim guitar player that they couldn't stand. And he was a far better player than I am at that time. And it was just like we just immediately clicked on the social level.
Yeah.
And it was like most of what you're doing with people, especially because they were already on tour, was you're hanging out with them. And if, the playing part's a small part of the whole experience. So,
totally.
So it does come into play a lot. And it's always hard to find good chemistry. That's probably the hardest part. You can find lots of good players, but good chemistry takes time. Even with Hello Morning.
That's kind of why I was thinking if you start small and then add people as you find them and as they naturally are drawn to your music, or rather than just throwing 5 people into a room and being okay, we have to be a band now.
And also, if you want good players, they got to see something to
to want to join.
Want to join, because good players aren't going to want to waste time with something that's somebody's still conceptualizing.
They want to put on a CD and be like, this is what you do. Okay, I'll be a part of it.
And it'll take time. I just started playing for an artist who's still trying to do the same thing, put together a band, and he's already playing with Peter, our drummer for Hello Morning, and so the guitar player they had wasn't working out, so he's still kind of trying people out, and it takes a while, but hang in there. If anyone else has advice on that, please feel free to email us or call in, because I know that we have a lot of people listening to the podcast that are solo artists that kind of go through the same thing, trying to find people to play
It
with.
can be nerve-wracking. I mean, I put out Craigslist ads for a while for looking for a female singer, and I had like 3 or 4 people come over to my house, and we like sang together, and they played stuff from their laptop, and we brought out instruments. And for me, as kind of a socially awkward person, it was really kind of a trying experience to have complete strangers come over and just,
try and make
playing
some magic
music with
happen.
them. Yeah, it was kind of like a blind date.
I had that once. Some guy came over, not to play with. He was just an artist in Portland and wanted to kind of get my opinions on something. And I don't know how we met, but it was like a mutual person or something. So I knew he was like serious. He came over and he looks kind of like this surfer dude. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm kind of expecting this. And the second he started singing, he sounded like Kermit the Frog. And I was just like, the look on my face was probably not that
Well,
great.
Neil Young kind of sounded like Kermit the Frog, and it worked for him.
And if I wasn't looking at him, it was fine. It was kind of like the singer-songwriter style that you hear like Jack Johnson or whatever, but his voice was like totally different than what he looked like.
Oh,
and so when he
right.
sat down, and it was like, yeah, exactly. That's what it was like that. Like, oh no. But no, he ended up being a great songwriter. It was just my first impression. And it was awkward because we never met. He's in my house. I was sitting there playing. Hi, But the first caller, who goes by the name of Juice, I think what he was trying to say was, because he said sometimes the CD doesn't sound as good live. I think he meant the artist doesn't sound as good live. And, I think the CD does need to make a good impression. That's kind of what he was implying in the way that he interpreted the whole calling card thing, where what we were kind of talking about in the conversation with Ryan, the idea that the CD was just a means to the end of getting people to the show, where I was arguing that the CD is an art form of itself. It does help get
It's recorded.
I mean, whether or not you give your music away for free, that's another thing, but just looking at it as a means to an end to something else overlooks the whole idea that, one, a lot of people don't listen to music live. They listen to it on recorded medium, which most people do, and also that it's not its own art form. But Juice makes some good points about, needing to do the best job you can, because that's what people are going to know you by.
Totally.
So, well, we've got some more calls. Let's get into them now.
How's it going? This is the Connie Mac from theconniemac.com. An electro hop / hip hop artist out here in the Garden State of New Jersey. My feedback was just for a podcast I heard on mobile marketing, and there's a great company that I happen to use. It's called Say Now. It's SAYNOW, saynow.com. It's a free service. You can get your own phone number, and with the phone number, you're able to blast broadcast, voicemail. Also, you're able to send pictures, and you're also able to send blast text messages as well to your fans. Again, it's a free service. You get your own phone number, and you can promote the phone number that way. Actually, Soulja Boy, in his song Kiss Me Through the Phone, he uses his Say Now number in the chorus, which was a brilliant way to obviously advertise and market his own Say Now number. Again, this is the Connie Mac. You can check me out at theconniemac.com. I hope everybody the best of success, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Hey, guys, it's Andy Epler, andyepler.com from Longmont, Colorado. You guys were talking about Twitter. Man, I just think Twitter is over because I think that this whole movement, this whole selfish listen to me talk about myself in 140 characters at a time, I think people are starting to realize that, man, nobody cares about you. You know what I mean? Nobody cares what you're doing for the day. And it's pretty ridiculous to think that anybody really would, or that it's information that you should be giving to people. Like, it doesn't make sense anymore. And I think this whole thing is kind of going down the toilet. I think people are starting to have to realize that maybe they're not the center of the universe. Anyways, thanks a lot for the podcast. I always enjoy listening to it. And we're about to put out another CD, my wife and I, called The Prairie Scholars. And we're going to put that out through CD Baby, just like always. So thanks a lot for everything you guys do over there.
All right, so those were the last calls for today, and Andy's was very entertaining. He actually called 2 other times and had very good things to say, but I didn't, didn't have enough time to put all of
share
his
them all.
comments in. In one of them, he said, "Man, you guys always know everything," and
It's true.
It's
If
true.
only-
Yes,
if
Andy,
only
it's
it were
true.
true.
I'm
No.
going to Twitter about it right now.
No.
I agree with him almost entirely. Almost.
I think the way Twitter is going to end up staying in the social landscape is going to be different than it originally started. And the impact of it to me is the real-time information. And, as we've seen with, partly why I mentioned the journalism thing right at the last second, seeing that right before we recorded that college making students take it, journalism students, is because that aspect's going to be around in the usefulness of real-time information. And real-time information has to be short and concise. It can't be, first of all, it's not going to be quick if you're writing giant pages of stuff. But also in the news area, when current events are unfolding, those kind of services have been really useful. Now with music, it's still morphing, and some artists are stopping using it. Some people are still going strong. Chris here has stopped.
Trickle. It's at a trickle.
It's down to a trickle. But it's interesting to see where things will go with that. But I'm not quite ready to say it's
I
dead.
think Twitter will stay around for a while because of some of the things you mentioned. And also, the fun thing for me is finding someone who's providing interesting links to, blogs and, taste, what do they call them? Tastemakers. People who are like paying attention to all the stuff that's going on in a given area, and they're providing like all the great resources for that sort of information. And and it's real time, like they're at a conference, or they're reading a blog that just came out, and they're just like, check this out, like here's the link. And that's what I like. It's kind of an interesting way of getting news about whatever you're into.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I find that it's more interesting. It's more fun to use when, like I was on vacation, showing links to, taking a lot of pictures. I thought that was a lot of fun. And because I know, like, my family back home was looking at it, and friends, and people were checking it out, and people that follow on Twitter. And my Ryan, who's been on the podcast, said he felt like he was on vacation with me.
Creepy.
Yeah, creepy. Okay, do a block.
Unfollow.
But I think it's just a matter of evolving it some to really understand. There's still some people out there that are considered like social networking gurus for musicians, or just gurus in general, that I think are the worst Twitterers out there, where they're doing just exactly what he said. It's just like, they're not, it's just me. There's not a really interesting article. Oh, I know a lot of people that follow me are interested in this. Here's a good article, or I saw this funny picture, enjoy.
Right. It's like, if you're, you have to think about it as being like a blogger, like if you're blogging, you are, presenting information for the world to think about, comment on, learn, be entertained by, and saying like, I'm so tired this morning is not all that compelling. You can say really compelling things in 140 characters, believe it or not, but it's hard. And, 99% of the people who are tweeting out there are probably kind of boring.
They are. But there's some good ones out there, too.
Yeah.
Hang in there, Andy. Give it another shot.
Or don't.
Don't.
He's still making music, so,
That's true. Can you make music and not be on Twitter these days?
I think you still can.
I think so.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, I actually have kind of been thinking lately, and this was actually after a conversation with Jeff Saltzman, who is mixing the Hello Morning EP right now, and he was a previous guest on the podcast. In fact, I think I'm going to go back and listen to that episode again, because when I interviewed him, I had no plans at that moment to have him mix anything, because I didn't have a band or anything like that. And just had some conversations with him in the last couple days, that one being of which he sent me an initial mix of a song to check out. And so I listened to it on headphones, and they weren't very good headphones. And so I grabbed another pair of headphones here at work, and I'm on the phone with him, and he's like, doesn't anybody have speakers there? And I'm like, no. He's like, everyone's listening through headphones, huh? So I guess the whole social aspect of music has died. And I kind of thought, that is a good point that, like I remember growing up, more from what I saw on TV because I was too young in the 70s to really grasp this vibe. But the idea of people would sit around and like listen to albums together and kind of just, sit there and listen, where now we put on music and everyone gabs over the top of it, But I thought that would be cool to kind of start a monthly
like
get-together.
A listening club?
Like a listening club where people come, they have to bring a track or two.
Yeah.
They have to say why they like it. And then we all listen, and then...
Yeah,
I would join that club.
I've talked about doing that with a friend of mine, and he kind of does that more informally with his friends because he has a lot of vinyl records, and he'll be like, come on over to my house, we'll play some records, I mean, it does happen.
Well, I'm going to do it. So be prepared.
We could do it on this show.
We could do it on
We
this
could do a
show.
whole episode.
We could do a whole episode.
Be like Mystery Science Theater 3000 with music.
No, it's not sarcastic comments. It's listening to the music.
Yeah, we could listen to really bad music and then just gab over
That's
it.
the problem. Everyone is just sarcastic all the time. So
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. What was the first caller saying? Oh, the Say Now. I looked at the website. It looked like a good service. So thanks for passing that along. Those kind of things are cool because it's hard to... why I referenced Andy saying we know everything. We actually don't know everything, Andy. We just listen to people who know more than that. Who do, and then tell you guys about it. But no, that seemed like a good service. So if you're somebody who using the cell phone or mobile marketing would probably do well for your genre group, definitely check that out. It looked like a good service. Because I knew since we did that episode, because that episode was from last winter, I knew some new stuff would pop up that wasn't available at that time. So check that out. All right. Well, again, if you'd like to call in and weigh in on any of the past episodes or just want to say hi or have a topic that you want discussed, feel free to give us a call at our listener line. The number is 206-426-5683. You can get that information on the podcast website at cdbabypodcast.com. And you can also leave comments there, which are great. Oh, which reminds me, one final thing.
Yes.
I discovered that Robert Lee King, who is legendary for leaving comments in the comment section at cdbabypodcast.com, has a fan of his comments. Somebody I ran into yesterday or a couple days ago who was telling me they liked the podcast. The next thing she said was, I really enjoy Robert's comments. And I thought she was talking about you.
Uh-huh.
And she said, no, I mean Robert Lee King. I love reading his comments.
That's great.
So, Robert,
Thank you for all of the thoughtful abuse. Please keep it coming.
He likes us.
I know.
He tells me on Twitter all the time that he feels like he knows us.
That's another reason for me to go by Bolton and not Robert.
There you go. So you're Bolton, and Robert is now our mysterious fourth member, who is only available in the comments section. But
welcome to the team, Robert.
Robert, keep it up. There's no pay for this, but keep it up because you do have some fans. Now let's see if you can keep each comment good and entertaining. As now we're judging. All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the DIY Musician Podcast. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.
Bye.
You've been listening to the CD Baby DIY Musician Podcast, broadcasting from Portland, Oregon, USA.